task ahead of him. He's against Taylor Scott piloting Rug Delver. Something that I said before, when Rug Delver captures the 1 seed of a tournament and gets to win all its die rolls, it is a fierce opponent.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Rug Delver continues to put up impressive numbers. I mean, it did really well at the Legacy Open in Vegas. Again, here, Taylor Scott pilots it to a 1st seed going into this top 8. And, you know, Chris Pikula, one of the longtime proponents of Rug Delver, even he kind of gave up on the deck recently just because he said he got tired of playing against True Name Nemesis decks with the equipment. So, you know, it's surprising that Rug Delver continues to do well, but again, it has a very good matchup against combo decks like Ant and High Tide. So given the right metagame, it's going to be successful.
All right, so on the play, Taylor will play the eponymous 1-drop there. That's Delver, Secrets off Volcanic Island, and he'll pass back to Andrew, who does not have a turn 1 play. And now the game is Rug Delver is ahead. How long can it stay ahead?
Yeah, so fortunately for Andrew, Delver Secrets did not flip into an Insectile Aberration. But this is one of those things where Andrew was kind of forced to sack his land right away while Taylor was tapped out because he didn't want to lose the Stifle. But then you expose yourself to Wasteland. So it's very difficult playing against Rug Delver, especially when you're under draw because they have so much mana denial in their deck.
Yeah, we see there just a Volcanic Island and a pass from Taylor. So nothing, kind of that play a 1-drop, then sit back and protect your lead game is being played. Andrew on turn 2 is going to go ahead and Brainstorm main phase.
And interesting here, Andrew, as Taylor does have, I think, Spell Pierce in his hand, chose not to Spell Pierce to Brainstorm. You know, there are times where, especially if you're a mana denial deck, Spell Piercing to Brainstorm could actually be the correct play there. Because with a deck like Shardless Bug, you don't get that much value out of your Spell Pierces.
Yeah, well, Andrew's basically, correct me if I'm wrong here, but he's just trying to secure his land drops with this Brainstorm.
Yeah.
One of the ways that Rug really keeps its opponents under lock is, like you said, through Wasteland and Stifle. So as long as Andrew can ensure that he'll continue to hit land drops, this should be fine for him.
Yeah, so I think if I was Taylor, I think I probably would have considered Spell Piercing the Brainstorm, particularly because you have Daze in your hand too. So you can counter a follow-up Tarmogoyf potentially, which is really the problematic card for you.
Yeah, it will look like that was an end-of-turn Brainstorm, so it's possibly one to hang on in case it's a card like Hymn to Turok. But Andrew just plays Deathrite Shaman that plays around both Spell Pierce and Spell Snare, which are both present in Taylor's deck.
And fortunately, though, Taylor does have a Lightning Bolt, so he's going to be able to cast Lightning Bolt here, targeting the Deathrite Shaman. Might also, looks like he has Lightning Bolt, Daze, and that Spell Pierce.
Yeah, so just a lot of control cards in Taylor's hand. Andrew's hand looks to be a parade of Tarmogoyfs, followed by 1 Force of Will.
Yeah, so it's a pretty good hand for Andrew. Obviously, Taylor doesn't have a Force of Will, so as long as he has a 3rd land, he will be able to play around the Daze.
All right, well, draw from Taylor is another Delver of Secrets. He will play that one to accompany the first one. So hoping a lot for a flip now. There's 4 lands in Taylor's hand. We'll be interested to see how many of them he runs out. He may want to hang on to some of them in case he finds a Brainstorm, so he doesn't have too much use for mana number 4.
Yeah, and second turn where Delver did not flip. Taylor better hope that Andrew doesn't have Bioblight in his deck. This would be a sweet, sweet spot for that.
Yeah. So you see that swing for 1. And crack of a fetch land here for Andrew Tenjum.
I don't believe Andrew has Maelstrom Pulse in his main deck.
No, this is actually going to be a Force of Will on that second Delver. And that, you're right, Andrew does not have Maelstrom Pulse in his main deck. He actually has shied away from a lot of the 1-ups that you typically see in a Shardless Bug deck. Sometimes you see a couple Maelstrom Pulses, a couple Baleful Strixes. None of those in his deck list. He's really just maxing out on 4-ups of his cards.
Yeah, and you could see here Andrew really doesn't want that second Delver to resolve because even though he has multiple Tarmogoyfs, he knows he doesn't have a lot. He doesn't really have any removal spells in his hand. So 2 3/2 flyers can suddenly get out of control relatively quickly.
Yeah, it'd be hard for him to race it, and Taylor willing to fight over that. This is tapping out on his main phase to go ahead and Spell Pierce that Force of Will.
Yeah, so despite not having a hand that didn't look to have too much action in it, and Delver not flipping for 2 turns in a row, Taylor looking in pretty good shape right here.
All right, so we are back over to Tenjum's side. He has a slew of creatures. He has many Tarmogoyfs, and looks like what is also a Shardless Agent. But it said he's pretty far behind on the board.
Yeah, it looks like it might be actually a Vendilion Click.
Well, that would be pretty strong right here.
Yeah, so Andrew does not want to play a Tarmogoyf here. He's afraid that it could potentially just fall into a Daze.
Yeah, so, and now finally the Delvers do flip into Insectile Aberrations off a Stifle from Taylor's deck, and what was 2 power on the ground is now 6 power in the air, and the insects come crashing in, putting Andrew down to 9 life.
And that Stifle's pretty sweet here because it can shut off any sack lands that Andrew draws. It could also stop Deathrite for a turn.
Yeah, remember, because Deathrite targets, that's not a mana ability, so you can stifle the Deathrite making mana ability.
Yeah, so Andrew did draw Misty Rainforest, but he is aware of the Stifle, so let's see how he navigates this turn. He could play around the days, but yeah, actually, he has the Vendilion Clique, which can come down and act as a blocker for the Insectile Operation. Unfortunately, it'll require him to sacrifice the Misty Rainforest, which, again, Taylor does have a Stifle for.
Yeah, so he's going to go ahead and sack that on Taylor's turn. He's going to want Taylor to use some of his main phase mana to use that Stifle. And it looks like Taylor will oblige. That Stifle will hit Misty Rainforest. And there's, as we see, there's a daze waiting in the wings for that Vendilion Clique.
Yeah, so pretty good situation here for Taylor, especially because Andrew's at 8. And he draws another Stifle, so we could just see a Stifle activation here. Oh, no, he chooses not to Stifle, so.
That will be Vendilion Clique. Doesn't have to Stifle because he has the daze. Clique will be down, and the skies are now clear for yet another attack from these insects.
Yeah, so really good situation for Taylor. Stifle, again, he could stifle the Deathrite Shaman ability next turn. And yep, Andrew doesn't draw anything, so he loses the first game. So Andrew loses the first game to Rug Delver, and Taylor Scott continues his winning ways, winning the first game.
Yeah, Rug Delver on the play is really a force to be reckoned with. And we saw that there. Taylor Scott was able to make 1 Delver and then 2 Delvers and really just keep Andrew on the back foot thanks to the cards like Spells Pierce, Daze, and Stifle.
Yeah.
So we are back in the booth. If you're joining us, this is the top 8 of our Legacy Open here in Nashville, Tennessee. So if you've been with us the whole day or if you're just joining us, we give away Star City Games Premium account during our top 8, top 4, and finals. So as this is the top 8, there'll be 3 months of Star City Games Premium given away. And the way you win that is by answering a trivia question. So the rule is you have to correctly tweet an answer to us with the hashtag SCG Premium on it. At the end of the top 8, one of the correct answers will be chosen, and that person will receive 3 months of Star City Games Premium.
Yeah, so we have a little tricky question for you today.
All right.
We saw Delver of Secrets there. Quite the impressive 1-drop. It's been around for a while. You're probably all very familiar with it. What is the name of the creature type that it flips into?
All right, so what are I believe there are 2 creature types that it flips into.
So what is the full name for the creature type? It is blank blank.
So you have to have both creature types for a correct answer.
Yeah, so give us both creature types for the correct answer. Tweet us at hashtag SCG Premium, at SCG Live, and you get a chance to win 3 months of Star City Games Premium.
All right, I like that. That was actually one that was pretty relevant. If you ever played Avis Unlimited, you had to know all the creature types on it. It was kind of important. So we'll go back to our match. That one was pretty quick. Taylor Scott establishing the lead in turn 1 and not really letting it go. Andrew's going to have to counter that game 2. Let's look at some of the options he has to do that.
Yeah, so Force of Will, not a very good card against Rug Delver. So I'd expect those cards probably to be the first ones to come out. He has 3 copies of Nile Spellbomb, which, again, I kind of like in this matchup. It allows him to kind of shrink Nimble Mongoose, allows him to shrink Tarmogoyf potentially. Beyond that, though, not really that much else he wants to bring in. Maybe a Golgari Charm as a way to kind of potentially kill a Nimble Mongoose and a Delver of Secrets potentially. But really, the main card here is Nile Spellbomb. The thing about Bug against Rug, Bug doesn't really have a lot of chance. Bug doesn't really want to devote too many sideboard slots to a deck like Rug because it has other decks that it kind of has to devote sideboard cards to. It has to have cards for Death and Taxes. It has to have a lot of cards for combo decks. So there's not really a lot of cards that you could even board in against Rug because their strategy is all about mana denial. So really the best thing for you is to just resolve a Tarmogoyf. Yep. So wouldn't be surprised to see Force of Will come out for some number of those Nile Spellbombs, maybe a Hymn to Torok or 2. But beyond that, not really too much Andrew wants to be bringing in here.
All All right, well, we look at Taylor's sideboard. He has a lot of the similar issue that you were talking about, and a lot of his sideboard slots are devoted to combo decks. We see many things like Red Elemental Blast, Flusterstorm, Graf Digger's Cage. These are weapons that are traditionally used against combo decks or less fair strategies. He, however, in this matchup is able to board in 3 Submerge. That's one of the weapons that Rug uses
That's
against
huge.
any Tarmogoyf deck. Submerge with 0 mana can go ahead and really reset a Tarmogoyf by putting it back on top of the library. I imagine we'll see those come in. Outside of that, we may see a lot of the same Game 1 strategies.
Yeah, again, Force of Will, I think Force of Will is probably the first card that comes out for both players. I mean, it's okay sometimes, but in general, given the kind of attrition style matchup we have here, you really want Force of Will more for combo decks. Again, it's kind of like insurance policy. In this particular matchup, it's not really that powerful. And like you said, a card like Submerge is huge because not only could you potentially force Andrew to shuffle away a Tarmogoyf because of all the sack lands, but it actually is a great tempo play for you as well.
Yeah, pretty much any card that costs 0 and can affect the board is something that Rug would be pretty interested in.
Yeah, and Taylor has a couple of copies of Surgical Extraction as well in his sideboard. Sometimes you see Rug board that card in against Bug if you think they're going to have Life from Loam engine, because you don't want to get Wasteland Lock with Life from Loam. But again, Taylor has all his access to Andrew's deck list, so he knows he doesn't have to worry about that plan.
That's something that's different in the top 8 of one of our opens as opposed to the Swiss rounds. You may see him board him in the Swiss, but he knows he's safe to not do that here.
Yeah. So both players it looks like Andrew's set with his strategy. Again, Andrew's been playing Shardless Bug a lot. He's very familiar with the deck. So given that Rug is one of those marquee decks of the Legacy, he's probably tested this matchup a lot, knows what he wants in and out.
Yeah. So my thoughts on the matchup is Rug is one of those decks that really, I don't know, it feels like it can be pretty punishing against any archetype, but certainly after game 1, this feels like a matchup that's good for Scott, or for Taylor Scott's deck.
The great thing about Rug Delver is, in general, the fact that it plays this mana denial strategy, it can punish any player that plays sacklands is vulnerable, and it forces you to play in a way that you're not comfortable with. Like, you don't know whether or not you have to play around Stifle. You don't want to expose yourself to Wasteland. It really puts you in this awkward position when you play against Rug Delver, where you feel uncomfortable, which can cause you to make more mistakes than you normally would. So I think Rug Delver, I think he's in pretty good shape just because the tempo ability for this deck is great, because Andrew's deck is a lot more mana hungry than you'd expect.
All right, so we are underway. This time Andrew Tenjum on the play, which means he'll get a chance to create a board presence before Scott starts that mana denial strategy. We'll see here, Verdant Catacombs.
Deathrite would be huge here.
Yeah, Deathrite's good. And Deathrite is one of the cards that, since its printing, has really had a lot of impact against the Rug Delver denial strategy.
Yeah, I mean, the entire bug deck, either the Delver version or the Shardless version, really would be so much worse without Deathrite Shaman. Deathrite Shaman really makes this deck just so impressive.
Yeah, so we see there a Tropical Island found. And will it be that 1-drop? Other possibilities is he also plays Thought Seizes. But it's going to be Ancestral Visions for
Ancestral
Andrew.
Visions. So this could provide useful down the road. Again, Taylor is in a hyper-aggressive deck, so he won't necessarily have too much pressure in play, but he does have that turn 1 Delver, really the marquee card for that deck.
All right, so Andrew untaps. So he has the card advantage engine set up. He is a little behind right now on the board, as Taylor was the first person to commit a permanent.
And look, it looks like Andrew did draw a Golgari Charm, so he does have a potential answer to that Delver of Secrets. He has a Misty Rainforest as well, so let's see what he wants to do here. He could be afraid of Daze. He doesn't want to fall into a Daze here, but I'm not sure he really has a choice. I think he wants to just cast a Golgari Charm here. He's not really going to get a better spot. He boarded in for this specific reason, I think.
All right, well, Misty Rainforest will find a Bayou. Looks like he is going to set up for that Golgari Charm. We'll see whether or not he does it main phase or on upkeep. Certainly he knows there are Spell Pierces and Spell Snares. And it looks like it'll be a main phase Golgari Charm.
Yep, so Golgari Charm, it looks like it will resolve. Taylor does not have a Daze. So Taylor, though, he still has a Nimble Mongoose in his hand, so he still can put a little pressure on the board.
Yep. Before committing that Mongoose, though, he's going to start off with Brainstorm. He sees he finds another copy of Brainstorm, a land and a Tarmogoyf. Looks like he also has at least 1 Submerge in his hand.
Yeah, so pretty good hand for Taylor here. Tarmogoyf is huge. Nimble Mongoose is obviously really good. And it looks like, is he going to hide one of the Tarmogoyfs or no? It looks like he's going to keep the Tarmogoyf in his hand. I'm surprised he's going to keep the Tarmogoyf in his hand because that's one of those cards that's really good in this matchup. You don't want to lose it to a card like Thoughtseize or Inquisition or Kozilek.
Sure.
But, yep, it looks like he's going to keep the Tarmogoyf in his hand, despite the fact that he's obviously not going to be able to cast it this turn. He does have a Tropical Island, though, so he could cast one of the Nimble Mongooses in his hand.
Looks like he's going to do that. So, yep, Tropical Island is made, Nimble Mongoose, and he passes back. So Taylor's hand's pretty loaded with threats. I still feel like there's some sort of sense of urgency here because of that Ancestral Visions on Andrew's side. Jarless Bug's an excellent deck at grinding, and the longer this game goes on, Taylor will be run down on resources if he can't put some mana pressure on Andrew.
Yeah, the mana denial plan is basically out the window for this game, it looks like. And he's just going to have to try to rely on tempo and quality creatures, which, again, he does have Submerge, so it's not unreasonable. Because that Nimble Mongoose can get pretty big relatively quickly, and Taylor could, it looks like Taylor could potentially drop Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose in the same turn if he has a third land.
Yeah, Andrew casts one of his Tarmogoyfs. He then plays a Creeping Tar Pit for the turn, comes into play tapped. A pretty good time to get that one on the board. For Andrew, to me, it seems like it's just about getting to 4 lands. If he gets to 4 lands, 5 lands, gets that Visions resolved, suddenly if he can cast all these spells he's drawing, I feel like it's a pretty good game for Andrew.
The problem with Andrew's deck is Bug in general doesn't have that much removal. It has 4 copies of Baroque Decay, it has some Liliana the Veils, and again, he boards in some Golgari Charms, but really just doesn't have that much removal. So a card like Nimble Mongoose can be really problematic for them.
Sure. Especially Tarmogoyf plus Submerge can just out-tempo the creature deck, I would think.
Yeah.
All right. So we see a fetch here for a second Tropical from Taylor Scott. It's going to be a Tarmogoyf on his own side. Because of that Tropical, because of the Forest and Bayous, the Bayou and Tropical Island in play, this Submerge is going to be live for Taylor, so he can keep Andrew's deck clear.
Yeah, the question is, does Taylor want to basically pull the trigger on the Submerge right now, or does he want to wait until he gets a better attack? Because basically Submerge is just a fog for the turn, so looks like he's going to wait a turn.
He wants to get as much damage through when he casts that Submerge.
Unfortunately for Taylor, I think Andrew does have another Tarmogoyf in his hand.
Yeah, and that Ancestral Visions is looming at 1 there. And Andrew will get a whole new hand shortly.
Oh no, it looks like it might be Liliana. Liliana might be coming down here.
And that would also be pretty strong. And he would lose it to the Submerge, but so we'll see here. It looks like there's a tap of 3, but it's only single black. It's maybe a Shardless Agent.
Okay, so let's see here. With 3 mana here, and it is in fact Shardless Agent. So, and we're going to see a Thoughtseize here.
Pretty good value here. And this is where the matchup, I think, becomes tougher for Taylor's deck. Because he wasn't able to execute the mana denial strategy, Andrew's going to be able to start resolving spells that cost 3, that cost, starts resolving things like Ancestral Visions. These are things that are at power levels that Rug Delver doesn't have.
Yeah, Rug Delver basically, short of Submerges, it really has no ways to kind of interact with creatures. It relies on this tempo strategy, mana denial strategy, and we're clearly past the point where mana denial is really a viable option for Taylor. And as far as tempo is concerned, Andrew now has a Tarmogoyf as well as a Shardless Agent, and it's really kind of difficult for Taylor to kind of put any kind of pressure on Andrew.
Yeah, so see Thoughtseize there. It's Submerge, Tarmogoyf, Nimble Mongoose. Looks like Andrew's going to select one of the Submerges. Or the Submerge is back in Taylor's hand because he can't take both. So right now he's picking between these cards.
Yeah, so Taylor says, these are the cards that you can get. You can only get one of my Submerges. So it looks like, Andrew is going to get rid of one of the Submerges. Tarmogoyf now grows to a 4/5 creature because there's a sorcery now.
Yeah, and the pressure is all on Taylor here. The longer they wait around, Andrew's just going to build up a wall. And as we see, he uses his 4th land to put down a Nihil Spellbomb. That's actually very good against the Tarmogoyfs in play, or especially against Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah, Nimble Mongoose is really the key here. It can shrink it down to a 1/1. It's going to be very difficult for Taylor to be able to build it up to threshold now.
All right, the draw for the turn for Taylor was Wasteland. It's part of his mana denial package, but with Tenjum already at 4 and an Ancestral Visions about to come off from Suspend, that strategy has a long ways to go before it starts hurting.
Yeah, at least he can deal with the Creeping Tar Pit and potentially keep Andrew off of double black for the turn. But like you said, Visions is going off next turn. He's going to be able to draw 4 cards in total for the turn. So he's going to be likely to get a second black source here.
All right, so Taylor decides to try to get as aggressive as possible. He's going to dump the rest of his hand on the table. So that's another Tarmogoyf and another Nimble Mongoose. And unable still, though, to attack for the turn.
Yeah, and Andrew knows that last card is just a Delver of Secrets, I believe.
All right, so we see Ancestral Vision Resolve. This card, I believe, is a Submerge for Taylor.
No, I don't think he actually has Submerge in his deck. I think it's a...
Oh, for Taylor, it's a Submerge.
Okay. Oh, yeah, the last card's a Submerge, I'm sorry. So it looks like Andrew drew an Abrupt Decay off of the Ancestral Visions. He also has a land, and so pretty good draw there. He has a way to deal with one of the Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah,
I think he has another... looks like he has another Tarmogoyf.
Looks like he has another... So a 4th land, he's going to be able to replace the land that was blown up. So he's still... That 4th land, it's like the 3rd and 4th land, just allow Andrew to start casting 2 spells per turn. And he's drawing all of these extra cards from Ancestral Visions. He's just able to continue to keep his board presence. We see a fetch land in response. The Tarmogoyf was submerged, so if Andrew wants to land, he actually has to shuffle away the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, and I think Andrew's okay with that simply because he gets rid of the Submerge and he has another Tarmogoyf of his own along with an Abrupt Decay. So Taylor still isn't going to have a good attack next turn because the Tarmogoyf will just bounce off of either a Tarmogoyf and a Shardless Agent, and the Nimble Mongooses will just get shrunk by Nile Spellbomb.
Absolutely. So we see those 2 lands tapped. It looks like it will be a Tarmogoyf from Andrew Tenjum.
And he still has that Abrupt Decay as well.
Yeah, a lot of options. He has a 4-card hand right now. So you said Tarmogoyf, Abrupt Decay. He has a Nile Spellbomb activation. Looks like he has a lot of options available to him. Taylor's board's pretty formidable, but it's not actually able to push some damage. And Andrew's sitting at a healthy 15 life.
If Taylor even decides to attack here, he basically is going to lose both his Tarmogoyfs and only deal with the Shardless Agent and only attack for 2 with those 2 Nimble Mongoose. Nimble Mongoose, rather.
So we see just a draw and a pass from Taylor. And now Andrew will start to press this card advantage he has.
Yeah, let's see if Liliana's going to start going to work here.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things you said actually about Shardless Bug is it doesn't have that much removal. So obviously it's in a good situation. The board's clogged. It's playing more powerful cards. But how does it eventually actually push through a wall of Tarmogoyfs?
Well, again, Liliana can take over the game eventually. And he also just keeps getting these incremental advantages with Shardless Agents, logging the board a little bit more. He could eventually just win with a Creeping Tar Pit. So the Shardless, the Bug deck really doesn't care what it wins with. It eventually is just going to get this dominant board position, particularly with Liliana the Veil.
Sure. So we see Vendilion Click from Andrew Tenjum. See if that resolves here.
Yep, so Taylor is debating whether or not he wants to let it to resolve. He might have a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, my guess is he has a card he's debating whether or not he wants to get rid of before he loses it.
Again, the Flyer presents a threat that can, fly over the heads of Tarmogoyfs and Nimble Mongoose, so he might just have a Bolt there. So it looks like, wow, so he has a Rough and Tumble and a Stifle there.
Yeah, I think he could have stifled the Vendilion Click trigger if he had wanted to. It looks like he may save the Stifle for something like a Nihil Spellbomb. The difficult thing is that there's just this wall that Andrew's put up, and Taylor right now doesn't have a way to get through it.
Yep. So Andrew, I wouldn't be surprised if Andrew just says, fine, you can have both those cards. I don't want to give you anything else.
Yeah.
I'll play around Stifle, and Rough and Tumble doesn't really impact the board right here that much.
Yeah, Rough Tumble can be pretty problematic. If Taylor decides to cast Rough Tumble, Andrew can Nihil Spellbomb the yards and take all of Taylor's Nimble Mongoose.
Yeah, but then he can just stifle the Nihil Spellbomb activation.
Exactly.
So Taylor's fine with casting this card here. He knows his Nimble Mongoose are going to stay around because he has that stifle.
Yeah, it may force the hand on the Nihil Spellbomb anyway. It's unlikely Taylor will ever let that blue mana down. Yeah, this will actually answer Shardless Agent, and it will allow a Tarmogoyf to Tarmogoyf trade to happen. Because Rough Tumble, though, doesn't hit flyers, Vendilion Click will get to survive this. So the only creature that on the surface dies is going to be the Shardless Agent.
Yeah, I still don't think it's that bad for Andrew. He's at 15. It's obviously not ideal, but I don't think it's a terrible situation for him. He's basically just going to lose a Shardless Agent.
All right. So we are waiting on the resolution of that. And Tenjum is going to go for the Nile Spellbomb. I don't think he expects this to resolve. He's doing it to Taylor's graveyard.
Yeah, so Taylor's making him pay the black. And he will be able to draw a card, but the Stifle will stop the graveyard removal ability.
Now that does mean that Andrew gets to draw a card off the black mana. There are 2 triggers going on. There's a remove the graveyard trigger, and then there's a when it's put in the graveyard, you may pay black to draw a card trigger. If he stifles that graveyard removal, Andrew still gets the card here.
So there might be a timing question here where Andrew might be indicating, since you allowed me to activate, since you told me to pay a black mana, it means that the Nile Spellbomb actually resolved.
Well, how it'll work is the Spellbomb will be in the graveyard, and there'll be a trigger on the stack wanting to resolve Taylor's graveyard. Then actually on top of that on the stack, there'll be a draw card trigger. So actually, Andrew draws a card before the graveyard is exiled.
Yeah.
When it resolved correctly. So the graveyard was not exiled. However, Andrew does get to draw a card is the net result.
So both Tarmogoyfs are coming over here, and because they're 5/6s, because Shardless Agent is now in the graveyard, he can't actually block with the Vendilion Click anymore. The Vendilion Click could have actually traded with a Tarmogoyf, but
exactly. So Tarmogoyf block was made there by Tenjum, but that actually is a trade. That's what Taylor was hoping for. I think he's just hoping that Andrew does not have another Tarmogoyf at this point.
And those Nimble Mongeys are still pretty beefy. You know, 3/3s, and with Andrew just at 10, Taylor can potentially attack for 11 next turn.
Yeah, I like the line that Taylor's taken here. It forces Andrew to have another Tarmogoyf or a lot of removal. Maybe both. He really just needs a Tarmogoyf to wall off these Nimble Mongeys.
Well, he has an Abrupt Decay, so he has a way to deal with the Tarmogoyf. The question is, if Taylor draws a Lightning Bolt, suddenly he no longer has a blocker, and he's going to be getting hit for 6.
Right. Tenjum wants to trade the Vendilion Click with the Goose.
Yeah.
But it's possible that Taylor won't let him make that play.
Yeah, so Andrew, he's got a decision on his hand here. He basically can only play one. He only has 2 lines, I think, this turn. It's either Liliana the Veil, down ticket, force you to sacrifice one of your creatures, or use an Abrupt Decay on a Tarmogoyf.
And we know he has the Liliana.
I believe he does have a Liliana, yeah. I'm not sure if he has another mana. Obviously, if he has a Tarmogoyf Abrupt Decay is the ideal play.
Yeah, Liliana Tarmogoyf Abrupt Decay does seem like the best.
It looks like he has a Shardless Agent in his hand as well.
So he can actually set up if that is Shardless Agent, he can set up a Cascade here. He could put his Abrupt Decay on top. And that seems like a pretty decent line, too, to go Shardless Agent into Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, that's great, because if Taylor does top deck a Lightning Bolt to finish off the Vendilion Click, then you still have a chump blocker, and then you can play Liliana the Veil. And then deal with. I think you have runner Liliana the Veil, so you'll be able to deal with both Nimble Mongeys.
So Shardless Agent is cast there, and it looks like Andrew Abrupt Decay was the top card of his deck. So he wants to draw that next card. He actually has a chance there to shuffle away a land if he wants to by putting it as the top card. He can go past it with Shardless.
Wasteland. So I like going after the red source here. So
that's really big.
Yeah, cuts off some of Taylor's draws there. Now Lightning Bolt is no longer live.
All right, so Scott Taylor down to 2 geese. They are 3/3s, but Tenjum is at 10. He has a 3/1 and a 2/2 in play. If Scott swings, 1 will trade, 1 will get through. He'll get Tenjum down to 7. But with no red mana, 7's a pretty big number.
Yeah, so if Taylor blanked for the turn, this is actually a fine attack for Andrew. He can trade one of the Nimble Mongooses and then just let the other one go through, drop to 7, and then he could follow up with the Liliana the Veil.
Yeah, and that is what's going to happen. And we see here the grinding power of Shardless Bug. Shardless Bug and Jund are 2 of the decks in Legacy, to me, they're fair decks, but they really just grind hard.
So Andrew drew a Thoughtseize for the turn. He also has a Polluted Delta, so he might actually just cast Thoughtseize first, dropping himself to 5, just to make sure that there's no stifle shenanigans, because he doesn't want to get the Liliana activation stifled.
Yeah, if he has no backup removal spell, he's going to have to Thoughtseize here. We see Thoughtseize. It was Lightning Bolt. What a key wasteland for him.
So key wasteland for Andrew there. Drops to 5, but takes care of the Lightning Bolt. Now he's going to go to 4, sacking the Polluted Delta. But again, 4 is a comfortable number because it's out of Lightning Bolt range. And again, there's really no, Taylor doesn't have any red sources anyway. So
it'll take 2 cards. It'll have to be the red source and then the Lightning Bolt. Andrew probably doesn't want to go to 3 here, but 4 seems like an acceptable place.
4 is fine. And now Liliana's going to come down, deal with the Nimble Mongoose. So really good position here for Andrew. Liliana's going to do some serious work over the next few turns.
So now at 4 life, Tenjum has established board control, and he has to go to work at Taylor's life total. From 19, it is now down to 17 from Shardless Agents. The draw from Taylor is a land. It is a potential red source, though. And we'll now see Andrew go to work.
Yeah, so step 1 was get a red source in play. Step 2 is draw 2 lightning bolts.
Sure. All right, so 2 more damage. Taylor down to 15, and just a land. Passing back. Andrew so far has been unable to speed up his clock, and we're going to see it sped up here. Shardless Agent into Deathrite Shaman.
Wow, so that is a great draw there. It gives him a little life gain,
Yeah.
so it gives him more of a cushion.
That life gain probably locks up the game for him here. Scott was on a draw of lightning bolts, but now if Andrew can gain life, Taylor's pretty much does not have an out.
Yeah, and now he had the Abrupt Decay for the Delver's Secret, so he's going to be able to uptick Liliana yet again. So now any creature Taylor draws is just going to die to a downtick with Liliana. Yeah, so Taylor in a rough spot here. Andrew can actually just drain Taylor for 2 life with Delver at this point, or with Deathrite Shaman, rather. That'll drop him to 7, then he takes 4, goes to 3, and then he dies. Yep.
That is enough. So we are on to game 3 between Taylor Scott and Andrew Tenjum. Remember, this is the 7th SCG Open top 8 for Andrew Tenjum, still looking for his first victory. In 2012, he was fortunate enough to have a finals in Standard, but that was actually it. So he's having an 8 seed, being the 8 seed in the Player of the Year standings. I would say it shows a remarkable consistency in Andrew's finishes.
Yeah, you know, that's a lot of top 8s to make.
Yeah.
You know, and especially because they're across the gamut. It's not just Standard, or it's not just Legacy. It's actually both formats, right?
It's both formats, absolutely.
So it shows a remarkable consistency across 2 very diverse formats. So yeah, pretty impressive constructed results there.
Yeah, I mean, the way to get points is to have a couple good finishes or a lot of consistent finishes. And for Andrew, like I said, to be 8th without a victory so far, that shows that he is in the running at virtually every tournament.
Yeah.
So going to game 3, that time, I think what I thought, Ryder tried to describe the games, I would say game 1, Taylor locked Andrew out of mana. By the time Andrew could cast things, there were 6 power flyers. The game was over quickly. Game 2, Andrew made his 4th land drop before Taylor stifled or wastelanded anything or dazed anything. And by that point, it seemed easy. Taylor had some of his best cards, but eventually just got grinded down by Shardless Bug. Back on the draw, things are tougher for Andrew, right?
Yeah, on the play, Rug Delver can get these draws that are nigh unbeatable. I mean, Delver Secrets, Daze, Wasteland, Stifle your land. There are certain draws.
You're already
at
8.
Yeah, it's like very frustrating to have to play against draws like that. So Taylor still has to feel pretty good. Submerge is also really, really huge on the play. Allows you another way to deal with Deathrite Shaman. So yeah, I think if you're Taylor, you're still feeling okay. But yeah, I'm with you. Game 2 basically just shows you once the LD strategy goes away and once the tempo line basically goes away, Rug Delver is basically not a very effective deck.
Yeah. So like you said, one of the best weapons he has here is Deathrite Shaman. If he can get it on the play, he's still gonna have to play around cards like Lightning Bolt, like Daze, like Submerge. There's a lot of things that could go wrong with a turn 1 Deathrite, but that's still got to be the best draw for him, right?
Yeah, obviously Deathrite is probably the best card he can play on turn 1. Really, generally when I see Bug beat Rug, it usually, all things being equal, like no players mulliganing or getting mana screwed or anything like that, generally it comes down to the number of Abrupt Decays the Bug player can draw. If Andrew can draw, 2 Abrupt Decays, he's actually in pretty good shape because Rug Delver doesn't have that many threats.
Yeah.
So if you can deal with Delver and then you can deal with Tarmogoyf, that kind of takes away the tempo line. Suddenly he's just cantripping to try to find another threat, so he's not able to kind of interact with Andrew as much. And so it really comes down to how much removal Andrew can draw. Again, he doesn't have that many removal spells, but in the second game, he was able to develop his mana base, and he also drew Golgari Charm, multiple Abrupt Decays, and then eventually Liana was able to close up the game. So it really comes down to how many early removal spells Andrew's able to draw.
You really put it well there. I mean, Scott only has 12 creatures in his deck. 4 of them have Shroud, so those ones are not going to be killed by Abrupt Decay, but the other ones are really good targets for Abrupt Decay in the matchup.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. But again, on the play, I kind of still give the edge a little bit to Rug, just because I hate playing against certain, it can just get some of these draws that are really, really difficult. So both players still shuffling up. It looks like they kind of know what they wanted to do. They're both kind of comfortable with how they played. And so let's see here.
Yeah, Taylor will be on the play here.
So Taylor's gonna be on the play. It looks like Andrew's okay with what he wants to, with his deck here. So they're both gonna present. They're ready to shuffle. They're gonna cut, and you know, let's see what happens here.
All right. Taylor Scott, Andrew Tenjum is the 1v8 seed. If you're joining us, this is the quarterfinals of the Legacy Open here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Matthias Hunt, joined by Osip Levodovich. We see Andrew Tenjum. He's our number 8 seed in the Player of the Year. He's number 8 in the Player of the Year standings. He's the number 8 seed in the top 8. Yes. Trying to get his first victory. He has a tough matchup, can have to win one on the draw against overall 1 seed Taylor Scott and a Rug Delver.
And that is an interesting hand there. Oh, Taylor is going to keep. So I saw Wasteland. I wasn't sure if there was another land there. So does he? Just pass. So no turn 1 Delver or Nimamongoose. So so far so good for Andrew at least. But
yeah.
Double Wasteland.
Double Wasteland, Brainstorm, Ponder, Tarmogoyf. And we see a Thoughtseize out of Tenjum. And I think if you're Taylor, you have to protect this Tarmogoyf, right? You said it's very light on creatures. He's got a lot of good mana denial, but he only has the 1 threat.
Yeah, I think if you have a Tarmogoyf in your hand and you do have a Stifle, I think you want to go Tarmogoyf Stifle on top of your library. Because you have a Wasteland. So on your turn, you're probably going to go Wasteland your Underground Sea. And then you want to have that Tropical Island up to potentially stifle any sack lands from Andrew. So let's see what it does here. I'm assuming he does have a Brainstorm.
Yeah, he does. He had a Brainstorm and Ponder in his hand at the moment.
Yeah, so Taylor shuffles, and it looks like it's a foil Brainstorm, so very nice.
All right, so he will Brainstorm in response, and he's going to hide some cards here. He sees Lightning Bolt, a second Ponder, and a second Stifle.
Perfect.
That 2 Wasteland.
They never see the second Stifle.
That double Wasteland, double Stifle draw is just what makes Rug Delver an exciting deck to watch.
So I would still do the exact same thing. Put Tarmogoyf on the bottom and then Stifle on top, and that's exactly what he does.
Yeah.
And now Andrew's going to see the hand. And let's see what he does here with a hand of double Wasteland. I have to imagine he's probably going to take the Stifle here.
I mean, Taylor's plan right now is to just Wasteland and Stifle Andrew out of the game.
Yeah.
He has 2 Wastelands, and as we know, 2 Stifles. The Tarmogoyf can come down turn 5. Once he stopped Andrew from ever having a land in play, that's when Tarmogoyf can come out.
If Andrew has Deathrite Shaman, he might try to take the Lightning Bolt. But if he had Deathrite Shaman, he might have led with it on turn 1. So I think he's still probably going to take the Stifle here. But let's see. Yeah, just because there's 2 Wastelands on Tyler's side of the board.
All right, so some updates from the other side of the brackets. In the match between fair and unfair, let me tell you what, it was an unfair fight. 2-0, Thomas Graves and Elves defeats Scott Tompkins and Bug Delver. 2-0, Eric Rill's Ant deck defeats Ben Robinson's Blue-White Red Delver. And 2-0, Dylan Jones's Sneak and Show deck defeats Eric Yu's Lands deck.
So
combo, and combo, all in 2.
Well, we're going to have at least one fair deck make it, so.
I like that about Legacy. Why would you, if you had the choice between paying for your spells and not paying?
So here we have Andrew's going to play. It looks like Andrew's debating whether he wants to play Polluted Delta or Tropical Island. He knows he got rid of 1 Stifle. So he might want to play the Polluted Delta because he thinks this might be one of the rare opportunities where I might be able to crack it. And that's exactly what he's going to do here. Unfortunately, Taylor did hide that second Stifle.
There you go.
Andrew's going to be kicking himself for that one. So he's not going to be able to suspend the Ancestral Visions, which really is going to hurt him. That's one of the ways you can kind of come back into it, because Taylor doesn't have any threats. But here's that Tarmogoyf that he doesn't have a second land.
He's going to go for Ponder. Well, he does, but it's a Wasteland.
Ah, that's right, yeah.
And we see Ponder on
wow.
deck.
So I'm surprised he didn't just go play the Wasteland and cast Tarmogoyf then. In this situation, it's really good.
Yeah, it's possible. That does seem really strong.
Yeah, because this turn is terrible for him.
Yeah,
he's
just going to get to make a land, and that'll be it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was hoping for here. Because, again, Andrew doesn't have any mana in play, so it's not like he could actually play a land and then abrupt decay your Tarmogoyf. So you could have kept, if you played a Tarmogoyf and then you wastelanded your Andrew's next land, you're in really good shape. unfortunately, now Taylor's basically not doing anything for the turn. He's got to hope to draw a land.
He's let off a little bit of the pressure that this mana denial has afforded him. Granted, he still has a wasteland in hand. You see he's actually shuffling off the ponder.
Oh, yeah, no, I am not conceding the fact that Taylor is still in a reasonable shape, but the fact that he didn't lead with Tarmogoyf, I think, is a huge mistake here because just playing a Tarmogoyf here allows him to kind of really press his advantage next turn. I mean, what exactly would you be afraid of? Andrew playing a wasteland and wastelanding your wasteland? Either way, you're keeping him off of a land. So
right, and you have a Tarmogoyf.
And you have a Tarmogoyf in play. So
as we see in Andrew's hand, he has a lot of land still, which that's actually pretty good against a mana denial strategy, that he can keep him in play.
Yeah,
now, a danger of Shardless Bug, though, is what is the basics count in Shardless Bug, I believe, is 0.
Yeah, he has no basic lands in his deck, so he's going to lose another land here. So Andrew still could likely, because he drew that land, that was a fortunate draw off the ponder, because if he didn't have a land, his next turn could have been awkward if he still did miss the land again. So next turn, though, he will be able to play Tarmogoyf and Wasteland the Underground Sea. Andrew here probably going to have to cast Brainstorm to try to dig for more lands. He has Brainstorm Ancestral Visions. Not sure he can actually suspend Visions here. He might feel like he has enough time because he actually didn't see the Tarmogoyf with the Thoughtseize. Taylor did hide it.
He may think Taylor's hand is all mana denial. Certainly the fact that Taylor shuffled off the ponder, if I were Tenjum, would incline me to continue believing that he hadn't found a creature.
So Andrew did suspend Ancestral Visions. He thinks he has a little more time than he actually does because he did not see the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, Andrew actually, between a tropical island and a wasteland in his hand, still has 2 more lands right now. Granted, one of his spells is Liliana of the Veil. Neither of those spell cards produces black mana. So he's going to take that card. Won't be online for a while. And now we see the play where the Tarmogoyf hit the table. So a third land for Taylor is that second wasteland. Brings Andrew back down to 0 lands and now casts Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, so Tarmogoyf is a 3/4, so it's still going to take some time before it can. It's going to take at least 5 turns, really. But realistically, 4 turns might be enough. But let's see how this plays out. Andrew doesn't really have too many turn 1 plays here, other than the Brainstorm, I believe, in his hand.
Yeah, he has drawn another land, and it's a fetch land, so he's back to having black sources. That means if he can find an Abrupt Decay, that will be probably the best draw he could get.
Yeah, so Taylor has a Rough and Tumble in his hand, which isn't really going to do much in this situation. I mean, if Andrew draws a Deathrite Shaman, he'll be able to kill it, but beyond that, not really going to do much. Rough and Tumble, I'm surprised he actually boarded it in this matchup. It doesn't seem like it'd be that good.
Yeah, I think he's boarding it in for Deathrite Shamans. As he said, that's one of those cards that's very good for Tenjum's side. I'll actually go over the decision that Andrew had here. He had a fetch land and a tropical island. He had to decide whether or not he wanted to just play tropical and Brainstorm and have that Brainstorm fetch land interaction, or whether he just wanted to be secure that his land was not getting stifled. In the end, he just went for Polluted Delta, Crack, find Underground Sea, play around Stifle.
And given that he just thought sees a Stifle, I think it's a reasonable play there. But fortunately for Andrew, Taylor's not able to press his advantage anymore. He's not finding another creature. He does have a Submerge, but again, look, it looks like there is a Tarmogoyf.
It is a creature. He has another Tarmogoyf.
So that is a great ponder there. He's got a Tarmogoyf, a Submerge for any potential Tarmogoyfs on Andrew's side of the board. So the real problem is that Andrew does have a Wasteland. So could Andrew potentially just go after the green source?
Yeah. Well, does Andrew have the time to go after the green source? That's your question, right? Because Andrew actually still needs to get this Tarmogoyf off the battlefield.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Great draw there for Taylor. It looks like it's a Daze. And again, that Submerge and Tarmogoyf still on top of his library. So he's going to draw the Daze, and I believe he left the Tarmogoyf on top.
Yep, so an end step Brainstorm there by Andrew. He may pay a little bit of a price here for end stepping it. That Daze was found off that ponder. Had he played it earlier, he would get to look. Now he does not.
And I like that he returned the Tropical Island, so he's protecting his green source from the Wasteland here. So pretty good sequence there for Taylor.
Yeah, another land drawn from Tenjum, but now he just has to top deck the Abrupt Decay. And it's looking difficult for him. Tarmogoyf's going to crash Andrew down to 9, and it will be joined by another Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, and it looks like Andrew is going to be able to cast a Liliana of the Veil, which means that...
that's half the fight. One of the Goyfs is gone.
So he'll be able to deal with one of the... And then Taylor still has a Lightning Bolt, so he could potentially drop Andrew to 3 here.
Yeah, we do see
and he drew Abrupt Decay
He does have the Abrupt Decay. So first it's going to be Liliana. Liliana will edict away one of the Tarmogoyfs. Andrew may be able to stabilize, but if he does, his life total will be very precarious. He is still at 9. One Tarmogoyf's taken care of, but now the Tarmogoyf goes up to 4-5.
Yeah, so and just a submerge there. It looks like he has a brainstorm, so he can dig for a second lightning bolt here,
Yeah.
which I think he has to, because he has to try to lock this game up right here.
What I like is he can get rid of that rough tumble as well.
Yeah, if he draws a second, oh, there's a second lightning bolt. Does he have
And
there's
a forked bolt. Now he has
Wow.
8 points of burn in his hand. That's going to be real difficult for Andrew to deal with.
So that's huge here. He can actually, so if he keeps the lightning bolt, he could actually do 1 damage to Liliana, 1 damage to Andrew. Is that possible?
That is actually not possible
that's
because,
right. He has to,
because
he has to redirect everything.
redirect. So that'd be like 1 to Andrew and 1 to Andrew.
Yep.
So you actually have to, if you go with Liliana, it has to be the full 2. But he's got a lot of burn, and he's correctly hiding the lightning bolts on top of the deck, playing just to top deck them one after another.
Yeah, so he's going to attack here. Andrew is going to fall to 6.
Down to 5, it's a 4-5. The Tarmogoyf grew after the first Tarmogoyf died. And this is scary for Andrew. Okay, so if your opponent doesn't attack your Liliana and then fork bolts your face and puts you at 3 and says go,
yeah,
I am concerned as the bug player.
Well, Andrew does have a wasteland, so he can keep him off of red. And that's going to be huge.
That's huge.
Taylor does have another brainstorm, so you can try to dig for another red source.
He doesn't actually have the red, though. You're right. Ancestral Visions came off of Suspend. And he has a Nihil Spellbomb to take care. So if he goes for the Wasteland, he can go Wasteland, Abrupt Decay, Nihil Spellbomb, and he can start actually using Liliana's Plus to try to sweep those lightning bolts out of Taylor's hand.
So yeah, given the way Taylor played the last turn, he has to assume that he's going to die to lightning bolt. So I think he has to go after the red source here. He's going to uptick Liliana, discard a Creeping Tar Pit, it looks like. Taylor's going to just discard the Rough and Tumble.
This is a huge Wasteland. This is Andrew's chance here.
Yeah, this is basically the game here because Taylor, Taylor, I think, might have 1, maybe 2 turns to try to get that second red source. If he loses his Volcanic Island, he still can draw the Lightning Bolt to use the Tropical Island to cast a Brainstorm and try to get another red source so he can just cast the Lightning Bolt. So let's see what Andrew does here.
Well, he's going to start.
He still has to deal with the Tarmogoyf in play.
Yeah, so he has Abrupt Decay for the Goyf in his hand.
Yeah, so he can't cast any other spells. So he has to Abrupt Decay, and he has to use the Wasteland and the Volcanic Island, which it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do.
Absolutely. He knows he's at 3. He knows his opponent plays Lightning Bolt. That last turn really, to me, telegraphed a Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, so let's see here. Can Taylor find a red source in the top 4 cards of his library? He knows 2 of them are Lightning Bolts.
Right, so the first 2 are no good. Pass his turn.
So he'll draw a card. He has a Lightning Bolt left on top of his library. There's the Abrupt Decay.
No surprise, only pass the turn as there smells of a Lightning Bolt.
So here we go. Brainstorm.
If he finds so,
Lightning
a
Bolt.
bolt. And then 2 unknown cards. Did he hit the red source?
It looks like there is a Scalding Tarn. Wow. So Taylor does draw a red source. It is a Scalding Tarn. And
for a second there, I thought Andrew had stabilized. It was all going to be about what does this Brainstorm find. It needed to find a land. It did find a land, and this Lightning Bolt should be enough to propel Taylor Scott into the top 4.
Not sure why Taylor's shuffling right here, but okay.
I'm like, oh, no, we're not shuffling. I have the bolt.
So, wow. Taylor, impressive victory there. Manages to defeat Andrew Tenjum 2-1. Andrew, it was an uphill battle with all those wastelands and the stifles, but that open victory eludes him yet again.
Yeah, a great game 3 there. Back and forth. Eventually, Taylor Scott looks like he had it locked up. Andrew finally stabilized at 3, but Taylor was able just with that last spell to get across the final points of damage, and that will move him into the top 4.